Well, we made it all the way through Advent, all the way through Christmas, and even to Epiphany.
We did it.
Yep. And so now we have nothing to talk about, and we're just going to hang out. We're just going to sit here. We've got no plans, no script, nothing.
We got a lot. We have a lot to do.
It's going to be like an episode of Seinfeld where we do nothing.
The episode about nothing.
Yeah, the one where they do nothing.
I like it.
No, there's a ton of stuff that we can talk about. And today I'm excited. We're going to talk about baptism. Yeah, there's some unique things about the way that we look at baptism in the United Methodist Church. And I think there's maybe also even some like misconceptions.
Yeah.
And definitely don't want to miss out on the beauty of baptism. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Becca. I'm the pastor of family ministries here at Katy First.
And I'm Mark. I'm the senior pastor here at Katy First.
Welcome to Katy First Family Podcast, where we offer you encouragement, inspiration, and creative ideas for how you and your family can grow as joyful disciples of Jesus Christ. So let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Let's not beat around the bush, right? Let's full immersion here. Mark, what is baptism? Do you feel like I am quizzing you?
I feel like I'm on the spot.
That's right. I need a brighter light shining directly on
you. You know this, but we meet with families and we talk about baptism with them. And in fact, these are some of my favorite meetings to do when I get to sit down.
Sure.
Particularly with parents, just because that's sort of our normal baptismal age is kids and children. And so we meet with children and the parents and talk with them. And, the first thing that I do is make sure they know, like, the language of sacrament, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
Of this outward sign of an inward and invisible grace.
Yeah.
And the outward sign in baptism is water, which is literally the most common thing in the world, in our bodies, everywhere. And so there's like just that in and of itself, I think, is part of the beauty of baptism, and water being the main element of that. Like,
fully agree. Yeah.
It's God's presence is close and common to us as the water that is all over us, in us, around us. So, then talk about, like a wedding ring, like when we baptize someone, this is our initiation into God's church, into God's family, and our belonging and all that, but this is like the outward way of showing that.
Yeah.
But what's always been true, the inward and invisible, what's always been true is that the grace of God is always in our lives and a part of it. And this is the way we recognize that.
Yeah.
And I think that fundamental truth, that this is primarily about something God has done, is doing, will do,
right,
as the primary actor in baptism, is so central to our United Methodist understanding of baptism, why and when we do it and how we do it. The primary person is always God, who initiates this grace in our life, who sustains us with that grace, and then we are participants in it at all stages of life. But it's not dependent on our ability to know it, to name it, to be able to articulate it. It is purely this gift that we receive, and throughout our life continues to work in us. And so, it's just so interesting. Like, if you're a parent, that plays a different role into it. Like, if you bring your kid for baptism, I think that's a particular baptismal moment, as opposed to if you did this when you were 25, 35, 45, 85.
Right.
It's still the same thing, but the context is different. So you might adjust the way you talk about it. But at the end of the day, this is about a celebration of God's grace in our life.
Yeah.
Our incorporation into God's family and the beauty behind all that.
I do think that's one of the things that, especially for parents, to talk about with baptism, because I think that it's a very common misconception, or maybe misunderstanding, why do we baptize as with infants, as opposed to, waiting later, or is there a concern there? So we baptized Samuel the day after we came back from family leave, after he was born, like that first Sunday back, we went ahead and did it. But that was mostly because of scheduling. Like, it worked really well.
Yeah.
We could have waited.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't anxious about it. I was only anxious in the way that, like, you're excited.
Yeah.
I was excited for that moment.
Yeah.
But we did it for him as an infant, not out of any kind of sense of fear or we better get this done just in case, or even any sense of obligation. Literally just a joyful occasion to bring our family together. We had a dear friend who baptized him. He actually has Samuel's, like, he's named after Samuel. It's his middle name.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's the other way around. Samuel's named after him.
No, from now on, Alex is named after Samuel.
That's right.
I like that.
No, that seems right to me.
That's
correct.
Yeah.
But so we had our friend Alex come in and baptize him, and it was just a really special, like, the anxiety was all just about being excited.
Yeah.
It was that good kind of anxious.
Yeah.
But I know that that's not always what people hear when they hear infant baptism, because that may not be true for all denominations, or even if that is their theology, maybe sometimes that's not what gets conveyed.
Yeah.
So why do we baptize as infants? You already kind of talked about it some.
Yeah, I mean, I think primarily it's because this is not about our action primarily,
right,
nor about our understanding of it primarily. Those are important in different stages, but primarily this is about the grace of God in our life, us recognizing that, and so at baptism, that's what we're celebrating first and foremost, and why at any point along the way, that baptism is a once for life baptism, because it was always about God initiating a relationship with us and holding us in that relationship.
Yeah.
And so that can be done as an infant, because for, on the grand scale of things, probably an infant's understanding, and you and I after years of seminary and reading theology, it's probably about the same of understanding the full grace of God. So there's no bar like an exam that you have to pass, at least in our theology, because it's not about that.
Yes.
And we just place the emphasis over here.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And honestly, we may get to this, that's something that I've come to love more. Didn't originally love about our theology, but I do now. Yeah. And now it's like even something that there's a lot of beauty in falling back on it.
Yeah, because I think that's the other side of it, right? So it's not, we don't baptize as infants out of a sense of fear, nor do we feel the need to wait until that we can fully understand, because then we would never do it. Yeah. Right? We cannot.
But that can be okay. We're not.
It's totally okay to wait.
Right.
I don't think that there's a wrong
I agree.
Way to experience baptism, unless, like, maybe if somebody, like, forces you, like, guilt would be bad. Yeah. You shouldn't do it out of guilt. Right. I can't think of very many things you should do out of a sense of guilt or shame or fear. Bad motivators. Right. And certainly not necessary when partaking of a sacrament, but definitely, like, we can baptize as infants, because we know that God's revealing God's self to us. When you and Hannah were deciding about baptism for Miley, what did y'all have to, like, think through? Or
a little bit. I think obviously being a pastor, it was important for both of us. I think Hannah probably knew that I probably had a little stronger kind of ideas around it. Sure. And she was in favor of Miley being able to choose for herself, or us baptizing her as an infant. And we kind of talked about it, and we ended up doing that. She was baptized 6 months after she was born, not for any reason other than it's just when we got around to doing it.
Yeah, totally get that.
And now we, like I said, we try to do the baptismal candle and remind her of her baptism, and I look forward to her growing up and me being able to teach around and remind her why we did that for her. Yeah. With her and for her.
Yeah. It is both.
Yeah, it is both. It's both. And as parents, and as I always tell parents if they have their child or infant baptized, you are celebrating that day, and you sort of have double vision of you look forward to the day when,
Yep.
In our tradition, it's confirmation, they formally embrace that for themselves.
Right.
They confirm that baptism. They confirm this faith. This is my own. Thank you, parents. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Glad you did that for me, or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is my, and so you sort of that double vision of like, yes, we do also think it's important that there is a profession of faith or some sort of
Right.
like personal articulation and ownership of faith, that just plays a little bit differently in the spiritual journey.
Yeah. I mean, because I think that's the other piece of it too, right? Is that there's this desire for us to see our kids claim their faith as their own. Or if we were the ones who were baptized as infants, I definitely remember, I left the church for a long time in my early 20s, had some real church issues to work out. Jesus and I were not speaking for a while.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, I kind of wished I could have that moment of baptism back in that moment.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to have this like public,
Right.
It felt like it. And so I get that impulse. And I'm sure for other people, it may be even a lot stronger. And so it makes sense to me to want to have like a public sort of rebaptism, but we in the Methodist Church, we do not rebaptize.
Yeah.
It's good the first time. It still counts. So
Yeah.
that's actually one of the few things we can get in a big trouble for as clergy is if we rebaptize somebody.
Yeah. And I have had that conversation a number of times with different people, and even for myself, like I'm similar, like you get to older and you're like, I want to be dunked in the water and come up, and it has this like real sort of dramatic moment. But it's what I've come to really appreciate about it now is like I've never known a moment, literally never known a moment in my life that I wasn't covered in the grace of God and beloved, because I was baptized as an infant. And I think that's always like, yes, we say that's always true, but like I do think this baptism has a significant moment. And like I couldn't earn it if I wanted to, because it was done for me. And so there's something of grace there that like almost handicaps me now from ever thinking I can earn it, because I was ever too young to think I could.
Yeah.
So that's one way I've come to like really embrace my infant baptism.
Yeah.
Not as something that I chose or did, but that was done for me, with me, that I really am grateful for.
Yeah. I think the beauty of our understanding of baptism, because it is one of the things I love the most about our United Methodist Wesleyan theology, is that it is so steeped in this kind of radical, unconditional love that God has for us, and nothing alters that.
Yeah.
That claiming of us. So, I think it's fantastic. One of the things I didn't know until I was, going through seminary was when people are baptized, we don't use their last name, right, to baptize them.
Right.
I love this little tidbit, and I don't feel like people know it. But we'll say their full name. So for me, it was like Rebecca Ann, but no last name, because in that moment you become part of the family of God in a new way, in a profound way. And so your last name becomes Christian. And at least that's how it was taught to me. I'm sure there's more nuance to it. Yeah. But like, I love that little like moment. I always think when someone is baptized, I almost always cry. So the next time just don't look at me, Mark. When the next time you're baptizing somebody, just look away, because I will probably be crying. This is how I roll. And because I think it's so lovely, this moment of like, hey, look at this new sibling that we have, this new member of the family. And I think it's wonderful. And I think it's wonderful no matter when it happens.
Yeah, I agree.
And I do think there are lots of factors for families about,
I mean, but that goes exactly to the point of just give thought to baptism. Yeah. Like the elements, the why, because on the surface, I can see it's just a ritual, it's just a thing you do. It's how you get saved. It's whatever. I mean, all the kind of like surface level things that people only ever say about this thing. it's just, but like the depth underneath it can go forever and ever and ever. And you can just,
Yep.
there's so much beauty in this sacrament that we've been given,
Yeah.
which is such a gift to us.
Right.
And we genuinely believe it's one of these means through which the grace of God is work in our lives.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is deeply symbolic, and God is at work in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just nothing.
Yeah.
It's not just something that we do.
Yeah,
Like,
that liturgy is powerful.
Yeah.
When we really pay attention to it. And I will say that part of my favorite piece of the liturgy is actually something that I learned here.
Mm-hmm.
The baptism song that we sing after someone has been baptized.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I heard it first here. I genuinely thought that Barry wrote it. Turns out it's in the faith we sing. It turns out. And I've taken it to all the churches I have been out since then, since that first time I heard it here. But I love it. And one of the lines in it is, you know, we this day do all agree, you know, or like it talks about how we as a church acknowledge what God is doing and also like celebrate it and promise that you will be a part of this, that we will be a part of it. Because it's not just something that is happening between the one person who's being baptized, no matter their age, and God even. It's all of us.
Yeah.
We're all involved in it. And I think from a family ministry's perspective, recognizing that that's a moment where we get to come alongside of the immediate family and partner in what God is doing, and help in whatever way that looks like, right? And celebrate, not just that moment, but lifelong.
Yeah.
That's a really cool, it's an important piece of the liturgy.
I totally agree. When I meet with parents, I will walk them through like who's involved. God first. Whoever's receiving, your child.
Yeah. Next
to you as parents, and then really sort of kind of like lean in like, hey, as parents, this is a really big deal. Like you are saying, Dick White, our previous senior pastor that I was working with, would say, this is our way of saying we're not indifferent about the faith, right? So like this is a strong statement. We know studies show like whether you know the Bible or not, faith is built at home. Like really lean in like this is a big deal and you play an important part.
Yeah.
And then follow that with, oh, by the way, the fourth person people is all of us.
Yeah, it's us.
Like we are here with you.
Yeah.
And that is vitally important. We don't do like private baptisms because the church is a part of every baptism, a way of saying, you're not alone. This child's not alone. Parents, you're not alone. We're all in this together. We all have a part to play.
Yeah.
And we make that commitment, you know, to every child that's baptized in a church. Yes, we'll do everything in our care to uphold and support this child in their faith. One
of my most important theological beliefs is that there's no such thing as other people's kids in the kingdom of God. Mm-hmm. Like we all, to quote High School Musical, as we frequently do, we're all in this together. And if you got that reference, then we're the right age. You're so singy today. I love that for us.
I got it.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you about is if somebody is on the fence, like pretend you're counseling somebody right now. They can't decide if they should go ahead and have their kiddo baptized, or, you know, especially if their kid is maybe a little older, right? Mm-hmm. They're already past, you know, the young stage. They're 5 and up or something. I don't know what your cutoff would be. Yeah. And they're not sure how they want to navigate that. What are some things you might offer them as they're thinking about baptism?
Well, I mean, for sure, I would, you know, email you and me. And I,
we 100% want to talk
about it. I'm such that's usually my first, like, let's just sit down and like kind of fill it out. Like, why? Yeah. Why is this important? And I will say, I do feel like there is sort of a line for your kids. Yeah. Like infants, young kids, great. As they get older, I do think it needs to become more of certainly a conversation now. Yeah. Like, and I don't know what that magical number is.
No, it may depend on the kid.
Yeah. But that now it needs to become like, hey, let's just talk to him about it. Yeah. What's baptism all about? And just getting a feel from them. And some kids like really want to do that.
Yeah.
Some kids like don't care.
Uh-huh.
And I would say if your child's not showing any sort of like strong interest in it,
Let it ride.
let it ride.
Yeah.
Wait till 8th grade if they're here in this church.
Yeah.
Or if they're in another church where there's confirmation, let it go till there. And then like that becomes the next opportunity where in a confirmation, they'll get the chance to receive baptism on their own.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think just kind of like, hey, what do you think about baptism?
Yeah.
And what's it mean? But if they're like, oh yeah, I think I might be interested in that.
Yeah.
I've sat down with a number of parents and kids old enough as well to like sit and talk with them, and it's still the exact same conversation, exact same principles as far as like this isn't some sort of exam that you need to pass. This is just your way of saying like, I am so grateful for God's love and grace in my life, and I want to recognize that.
Yeah.
And embrace that for myself, and it's still true that just as we would talk to a parent who's dealing with an infant as much as a parent with a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Hey, parent, you still have a very vital role in this.
Yeah.
I'm still going to ask the questions of faith to the parent alongside the kid, because the parent still has a role. So every stage is sort of different.
Yeah.
And I think for any parent that maybe wants their child to be baptized, the first conversation may be with you and I, just so they maybe feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But, it's just say, hey, what do you think about baptism?
Yeah.
Or have you ever heard about this?
Yeah.
And then just kind of gauge the waters.
Yeah.
If there's interest, go a little further. If there's like nothing.
Was that like pun intended? Gauge the waters.
I wish it was.
Oh, it's a good one.
Stir the waters, feel the water. Water's nice.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so
sense.
I mean, it's just and I don't think, like you said, I don't think there has to be a lot of anxiety around baptism. Like, if your child isn't baptized, it's okay. Like
100%.
Obviously, God's grace is still at work in that child. Like, baptism is important, has a lot of significance, and it's
because there's a lot of stuff that can come up for families.
Yeah.
And everybody is doing the best they can.
For sure.
And so we just want to partner with people in that and celebrate all the ways God is at work in your life. Mm-hmm. And if that involves water, awesome. Yeah. If it doesn't, okay. Yeah. That's still awesome. Yeah. God's still at work, and that's a really good thing. Definitely don't need to feel any like anxiety about it.
Yeah. And I would say for any parents who aren't baptized, like if they feel first off, if you're going, well, maybe I'm not baptized, or maybe you don't know, you can't remember, we'd love to talk with those parents too. Some of the coolest baptisms we've done in this church, I've done at least 2 where it was parent and child at the same time.
Those are cool.
And that was a lot of fun.
That's a special moment.
Yeah, so those are fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's great that we're getting to talk about this. I do think that because we celebrate communion more regularly, it gets a little bit more of the shine of the 2 sacraments in our church. But baptism is a really special thing. Yeah. And I'm excited that we got to participate in a remembrance of it. Yeah. And I am grateful for it. See what I did there? Mm-hmm. See how I pulled that liturgy back in?
Loved it.
Yeah. Well, we hope that this week, as you are going about the normal parts of your life, that every time you take a sip of water or wash your hands, you'll have a moment to think about the way that God has always loved you. You'll be encouraged by that thought, and you'll get to share it with all the loved ones in your home and in your life. We'll see you next week, and we'll talk more about whatever it is that Mark comes up with for us to talk about.
Oh, it's going to be good. We're going to a new series.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Normally we preview the next series, and I didn't do that. My bad. Okay. We'll talk about it next week. It's fine.
That's for next week.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week. Have a good week.